The waitress saw what 6 trained killers couldn't. Death sitting 3 tables away, pretending to smile. In a city where reading people wrong gets you buried in the industrial district, one woman's degree in criminal psychology was about to save the most dangerous man in Chicago. And destroy her quiet life forever. Because sometimes, the difference between a hero and a target is just 5 whispered words. Welcome to Echoes of Redemption, where the deadliest men find their humanity in the most unexpected places, and love is always born from the ashes of who we used to be. If this story already has your heart racing, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. We bring you new emotional journeys every single day. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, because we love knowing our stories reach you. Now let's see how one waitress's sharp eyes changed 2 lives forever. Eva Simpson's feet ached in the cheap sneakers she'd resoled twice. The dinner rush at Rossi's was thinning out, leaving behind the smell of garlic bread and the low hum of conversations that never quite reached the corners. She moved between tables with practiced efficiency, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, smiling the smile that earned tips but never reached her eyes. She had exactly $43 in her checking account. Lily's school field trip permission slip sat unsigned in her purse because it cost $20 she didn't have. The electricity bill was due in 5 days. These were the numbers that played on repeat in her head, a constant mental calculator that never shut off. Table 12 sat in the back corner, the table everyone pretended not to notice. Enrico Cruz had been coming every Tuesday for 8 months. Eva had served him maybe 20 times, always the same. Espresso, risotto, no dessert, no conversation. He read the Tribune while he ate, occasionally glanced at his phone, and left cash that included a generous but not excessive tip. Eva knew who he was. Everyone did. South Side Chicago wasn't that big, and Enrico Cruz's name carried weight that made grown men's voices drop to whispers. But Eva had learned something in her 4 years of graduate-level psychology courses before her ex-husband drained their accounts and disappeared. Dangerous men were just men with different behavioral patterns, and patterns could be read. Tonight, something was off. Table 6 had ordered 30 minutes ago. 4 men in business casual, the kind of clothes that looked expensive, but weren't tailored quite right. They'd barely touched their food. One kept checking his watch. Another had positioned his chair at an angle that gave him a clear line of sight to table 12. Eva's pulse quickened as she recognized the micro-expressions she'd studied in textbooks. The subtle jaw tension of someone preparing for action. The repeated glances that weren't casual observation, but tactical assessment. The way their hands stayed near their laps instead of relaxed on the table. Predators watching prey. She dropped off a check at table 9, her mind racing through possibilities. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe they were just businessmen having a tense meeting. Maybe her psychology degree had made her paranoid, seeing threats in normal behavior. But then the man closest to the kitchen stood up, headed toward the restroom. The route took him past table 12. He slowed as he passed Enrico, just half a second, his right hand brushing against his jacket in a gesture that made Eva's stomach drop. Checking for a weapon. Eva's hands trembled as she picked up the espresso pot from the warmer. She had a 5-year-old daughter sleeping at her neighbor Mrs. Chen's apartment right now, trusting that Mommy would pick her up in 2 hours when the shift ended. She had $43 and a mountain of debt and absolutely no reason to get involved in whatever was about to happen. Except that she'd watched Enrico Cruz read picture books on his phone while he waited for his food. She'd seen him leave extra cash specifically designated for the kitchen staff, in handwriting that was surprisingly careful. She'd noticed that he always said please and thank you, which was more than most customers managed. And she had a degree in reading people that was currently screaming at her that 6 men were about to kill one. Eva walked to table 12, the espresso pot steady in her hand, despite the earthquake in her chest. Enrico didn't look up from his newspaper immediately. When he did, his dark eyes were unreadable, the kind of gaze that had probably made men confess to things they didn't do. "Refill?" Eva asked, her voice steady. "I'm fine, thank you." Eva leaned down slightly, positioning herself so her body blocked the view from table 6. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, each word measured and clear. "Sir, those men at table 6 keep staring at you wrong." Enrico's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. A sharpness, a sudden focus that made Eva realize she'd been right about him being dangerous. Men who could go from calm to lethal in half a heartbeat were the ones who survived long enough to become legends. Wrong how? His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. Like they're counting seconds, not enjoying dinner. The one who walked past you 60 seconds ago checked his jacket for weight distribution. Right side. They haven't touched their food. They're not here to eat. Eva straightened up, poured espresso he hadn't asked for, and walked away before her shaking hands could give her away. She didn't look back at table 6. Didn't need to. She could feel their attention shift, that predatory awareness that knows when prey has become complicated. She pushed through the kitchen doors, her breath coming too fast. Marco, the line cook, glanced up from the grill. "You good, Eva?" "Just need a second." She gripped the edge of the steel counter, trying to calculate what she'd just done. She'd warned a Mafia boss about an ambush. That made her... what? A witness? An accomplice? A problem? The sound of chairs scraping came from the dining room. Then voices, loud and sharp. Eva's heart hammered against her ribs. She cracked the kitchen door open just enough to see. Table 6 was empty. The front door was swinging shut. Enrico still sat at table 12, phone to his ear, his face carved from stone. 3 men in dark suits had materialized from somewhere, the bathroom, the bar area, Eva wasn't sure, and now stood in a loose perimeter around him. Security. He'd had security the entire time. Eva let the door close, her knees suddenly weak. She'd just inserted herself into something that existed in a world she'd only studied theoretically. Real violence. Real stakes. Real consequences. When she finally returned to the floor 20 minutes later, Enrico was gone. His table was clean except for cash under the espresso cup, $300, and a business card with a handwritten note. "You see things other people miss. That's rare. EC." Eva's hands shook as she pocketed both. $300. That was Lily's field trip, the electricity bill, and groceries for 2 weeks. It was also a message she didn't know how to read. She finished her shift in a haze, collected Lily from Mrs. Chen's at 11, carried her sleeping daughter up 4 flights of stairs to their studio apartment that smelled like the Indian restaurant downstairs. Lily didn't wake up when Eva tucked her into the twin bed they shared. Didn't stir when Eva sat by the window and stared at the business card until her eyes burned. The smart thing would be to throw it away. Forget tonight happened. Keep serving tables and scraping by and staying invisible. But Eva had stopped making smart choices the day she married a man whose charm hid cruelty. She'd learned the hard way that sometimes survival meant trusting your gut even when your gut told you to do something terrifying. She fell asleep with the card on the nightstand. Lily's small, warm body curled against her side, and no idea that the men from table 6 were sitting in a car 2 blocks away, uploading photos of her to a server in Tijuana. The next morning, Eva woke to Lily's small hand patting her face. Mama, I'm hungry." Eva blinked into consciousness, her body protesting the 4 hours of sleep. Lily's brown eyes were wide and expectant, her dark curls a tangled halo around her face. 5 years old, and already she'd learned to be patient when there wasn't enough food, to stay quiet when Mama was counting pennies, to understand that maybe later usually meant no. "Let's see what we've got, baby." The refrigerator offered half a carton of eggs and some wilting spinach. Eva made an omelet, gave Lily the bigger half, and ate standing at the counter while Lily chattered about a drawing she wanted to make at school. Mrs. Davis said we're learning about families today. I'm going to draw you and me and maybe a dog. Can we get a dog, Mama? Maybe someday, Lilybug. That's okay. I can draw an invisible dog for now. He'll be very good and won't need food. Eva's heart cracked a little, the way it did every time Lily's childhood showed through the poverty they lived in. She kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathing in the strawberry shampoo from last night's bath. You're gonna be late. Go brush your teeth. Lily scrambled down from the chair, her light-up sneakers flashing as she ran to the bathroom. Eva packed the lunch she'd prepped last night: peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, crackers. Not enough, but enough to get through the day. The walk to Lily's school took 15 minutes. Eva held her daughter's hand, navigating the cracked sidewalks and chain-link fences that marked their neighborhood. Other parents dropped kids off in cars, wearing clothes that didn't have frayed hems and tired eyes. Eva had learned not to make eye contact, not to invite the questions about where Lily's father was or why Eva always volunteered for the free lunch program paperwork assistance. Bye, Mama! Lily hugged her fiercely, then ran toward the playground where her friend Jasmine was waving. Eva watched until Lily disappeared into the building, then turned toward the bus stop that would take her downtown to her second job. Data entry at a law firm, 4 hours, 3 days a week. Just enough to keep the lights on. She didn't notice the black sedan idling across the street. Didn't see the man in the passenger seat lift a camera with a telephoto lens. Didn't know that her face, and Lily's, were being cataloged and sent to people who saw problems as things to be eliminated. The envelope appeared on Eva's windshield 2 days later. She was loading groceries into her 15-year-old Honda, the car that needed new brake pads and made a grinding sound she couldn't afford to investigate, when she saw it tucked under the wiper blade. Heavy cream paper, no markings, sealed with actual wax, like something from a different century. Eva's hand stilled on the grocery bag. The parking lot of the discount supermarket was half empty, the afternoon sun casting long shadows between the cars. No one seemed to be watching, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood up anyway. She set the groceries down and pulled the envelope free. The wax seal had been pressed with some kind of insignia she couldn't quite make out. Inside was a single card, heavy stock, with an embossed border. Ms. Simpson, the men you identified have been dealt with. However, their employers now know you were involved. This creates complications. I'd like to discuss your safety and your daughter's. Tonight, 8 p.m., Rossi's. Your shift manager has been informed you'll arrive an hour early. EC Eva's pulse hammered in her throat. She read it 3 times, her psychology training automatically analyzing the word. Choices, dealt with, not arrested. Employers, not associates. Complications, not danger. He was being careful with language, either because he assumed the note might be intercepted, or because he knew direct threats would make her run. The smart thing would be to go to the police. Except Eva had no evidence of anything except a generous tip and a business card. And she knew enough about how Chicago worked to know that involving police in Mafia business was an excellent way to end up in a deeper hole. She drove home with the groceries and the note, her mind racing through scenarios. At the apartment, Mrs. Chen was waiting on the stoop, Lily playing hopscotch on the sidewalk. Mama! Lily ran over, launching herself into Eva's arms. I got a star on my drawing. Mrs. Davis said my invisible dog looked very real. That's wonderful, baby. Eva squeezed her tight, breathing in the scent of playground and childhood and everything she was trying to protect. Over Lily's head, she met Mrs. Chen's eyes. Could you watch her tonight? I have to handle something at work. Mrs. Chen, who was 73 and had survived things she never talked about, just nodded. Of course, Lily and I will make dumplings. Yay! Mrs. Chen's dumplings. Lily bounced on her toes, and Eva felt the familiar guilt of gratitude. Mrs. Chen never asked for payment, just occasionally accepted groceries or help with her prescriptions. Another debt Eva couldn't quite repay. At 7 p.m., Eva dropped Lily at Mrs. Chen's apartment, watched her daughter settle in with flour and a rolling pin, then caught the bus to Rossi's. She'd changed into clean jeans and a sweater that didn't have stains, pulled her hair back, and tried to look like someone who wasn't terrified. The restaurant was in that quiet lull between prep and dinner service. Eva entered through the back, and Marco looked up from chopping onions. Boss said you're meeting someone in the private room. Wants you to go straight back. Eva's stomach dropped. Private room? Yeah, the one we use for special guests. Marco's expression said he knew exactly what kind of special guests used that room, and that Eva was in over her head. The private room was at the very back of Rossi's, past the kitchen, and through a door Eva had never seen opened. Inside was a single table, elegantly set, with soundproofing panels on the walls that made the kitchen noises disappear into muffled nothing. Enrico Cruz sat at the head of the table. He stood when she entered, a gesture that seemed anachronistic and somehow made everything more surreal. He was wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than Eva's car, and his expression was unreadable. Ms. Simpson, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? Eva's voice came out steadier than she felt. Something that might have been respect flickered across his face. Always. But I'm hoping you'll choose to listen before you decide to run. He pulled out a chair for her. Eva hesitated, then sat. Running now wouldn't change whatever he was about to tell her. Might as well hear it. Enrico returned to his seat, folding his hands on the table. No weapons visible, but Eva wasn't naive enough to think that meant anything. Men like him didn't need guns to be dangerous. The men you identified were hired by the Tierras cartel. They've been trying to move into Chicago for 6 months. I've been discouraging them. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Your warning gave me enough time to call my security and evacuate before they could act. You saved my life. I'm not looking for gratitude. I know. You're looking for me to tell you this doesn't affect you. He leaned back, his dark eyes sharp. But it does. The cartel's surveillance footage shows you warning me. They've identified you. Your address. Your daughter's school. Eva's blood turned to ice. Are you threatening me? No. I'm telling you that they are. He pulled a tablet from beside his chair, turned it to face her. On the screen was a photo of Lily on the playground, laughing with Jasmine. Time stamped from this morning. Eva's vision tunneled. She gripped the edge of the table, her breathing shallow. If you let anything happen to my daughter, I won't. His voice cut through her panic, firm and absolute. That's why you're here. I'm offering protection. In exchange for what? Eva forced herself to focus, to think past the terror. Men like Enrico Cruz didn't offer anything for free. In exchange for what you did Tuesday night, seeing threats before they materialize. He tilted his head, studying her. My security team are excellent at physical protection, but they didn't see the ambush. You did. In 30 seconds, you analyzed behavior patterns they missed. That's valuable. I'm a waitress. You're a woman with a master's degree in criminal psychology who's been profiling customers for 8 months without realizing it. He slid a folder across the table. I had you looked into. I apologize for the invasion, but I needed to know who I was dealing with. Eva opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside was her life in bullet points, her degree from Northwestern, her ex-husband's abandonment, her debt, Lily's school records. It was thorough and invasive, and proof that Enrico Cruz knew exactly how desperate she was. So what? Eva's voice shook with anger now, not just fear. You want to hire me? Offer me some kind of job reading people's body language so you can, what, kill Kill them more efficiently? I want to keep you and your daughter alive." His tone didn't change, but something intense flickered in his eyes. "The cartel won't stop because I ask nicely. They'll come for you to punish me for surviving. Your options are run, which they'll track, go to the police, which won't protect you from professional killers, or accept my protection until the situation is resolved." Resolved meaning I convinced the cartel that touching you would cost more than it's worth. Eva closed the folder, her mind racing through possibilities. Every scenario ended the same way. Lily in danger because Eva had seen too much and said too much and made herself a problem. If I say yes, what does protection look like? You and Lily move into my property, gated, surveilled, secure. You continue your life as normally as possible, but with security present. And yes, if you're willing, you consult on behavioral analysis when I need it. But that's optional. Your safety isn't conditional on your cooperation. Eva laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You're saying I can just live in your house, protected by your people, and owe you nothing. I'm saying you saved my life. I pay my debts. And if I refuse? Enrico's expression softened in a way that was almost worse than coldness. Then I'll do what I can from a distance. But it won't be enough. And we both know it. Eva sat there in the soundproofed room, staring at a man who killed people for a living, and was offering her a lifeline with strings she couldn't even see yet. She thought about Lily drawing invisible dogs because they couldn't afford real ones. Thought about the photo on the tablet, her daughter laughing without knowing she was being watched by monsters. She'd studied criminal psychology for 4 years. She knew that the most dangerous moment in any hostage situation was when the victim started to empathize with the captor. Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, all the terms that described what happened when survival depended on trusting someone you shouldn't. But this wasn't empathy. This was arithmetic. Lily's life versus Eva's pride. There was no equation where pride won. "How long?" Eva asked quietly. 2 weeks, maybe 3. The cartel will send someone to negotiate. I'll make it clear you're under my protection and not worth the trouble. They'll move on. And if they don't, then we reevaluate. He pulled out another card, slid it across. An address in Lincoln Park. "The property is ready. I can have someone collect you and Lily tonight, or you can come tomorrow. Your choice." Eva picked up the card, felt the weight of it like a contract she was signing in invisible ink. "I need to tell my neighbor. Pack some things. I'll have a car waiting at your building in 2 hours." Enrico stood, and again that anachronistic courtesy, as he waited for her to stand first. "Ms. Simpson, I know this isn't how you imagined your life going, but I promise, no harm will come to your daughter while she's under my protection." "Why?" Eva looked up at him, this man with blood on his hands and surprising gentleness in his voice. "Why does my daughter matter to you?" Something raw flashed across his face, there and gone so fast Eva almost missed it. "Because I was 7 when I watched men kill my mother. I know what it looks like when a child's world ends, and I promised myself I'd never let it happen again if I could stop it." He walked out before Eva could respond, leaving her alone in the soundproofed room with a business card and a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. The car that pulled up to Eva's building at 9:30 p.m. was black, sleek, and so obviously expensive that Mrs. Rodriguez from 2B actually stopped yelling at her boyfriend to stare at it through her window. Eva stood on the curb with 2 duffel bags and a very confused 5-year-old. Lily clutched her stuffed rabbit, threadbare and missing one ear, and watched the driver step out with wide eyes. "Mama, is that a limousine?" "It's just a car, baby. A really, really fancy car." Lily's voice was filled with the kind of wonder that made Eva's chest tight. The driver was a woman in her 40s, professional and calm, in a way that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by nothing. "Ms. Simpson, I'm Teresa. Mr. Cruz sent me. Are you a—" Eva didn't know how to finish that sentence around Lily. Bodyguard? Mobster? Professional kidnapper? "I'm head of household staff." Teresa smiled at Lily. "And you must be Lily. Mr. Cruz mentioned you like drawing. We have an art room with supplies." "An art room?" Lily's eyes went enormous. "Mama, did you hear that? An art room." Teresa loaded their bags into the trunk, while Eva buckled Lily into a car seat that was definitely nicer than anything Eva could have afforded. The interior smelled like leather, and something expensive Eva couldn't name. Lily pressed her face to the window, watching the city lights blur past. "Mama, where are we going exactly?" Eva had practiced this conversation in her head for 2 hours. "We're going to stay with a friend of Mama's. Just for a little while. He has a big house and said we could visit." "Is he nice?" Eva thought about Enrico Cruz's eyes when he talked about his mother, about the way he'd said I pay my debts like it was a sacred vow. "I think so, baby. We'll find out together." The drive took 40 minutes, the neighborhood transforming from Eva's cramped South Side blocks to the wide streets and manicured lawns of Lincoln Park. When Teresa turned through iron gates that opened automatically, Lily gasped, "Mama, this is like a castle." It wasn't a castle, but it might as well have been. The house was 3 stories of stone and glass, set back from the street by at least 100 yards of landscaped grounds. Security lights illuminated a circular driveway where a fountain stood in the center, water trickling from a bronze sculpture of some kind of bird. Eva's hands were clammy. This was real. She'd agreed to bring her daughter into the home of a mafia boss because the alternative was worse. Every maternal instinct she had was screaming that this was wrong, dangerous, insane. But Lily's school photo was on a cartel server, and that made this the safest option available. Teresa parked and opened their door. Before Eva could fully step out, the front door opened and Enrico appeared, flanked by a man built like a linebacker. He'd changed from the suit into dark slacks and a sweater, looking almost domestic if you ignored the way the linebacker stayed 2 steps behind him at all times. His eyes went immediately to Lily, who was still clutching her rabbit and staring at the fountain. "Ms. Simpson." He nodded to Eva, then crouched down to Lily's level. The gesture was so unexpected that Eva almost stepped between them on instinct. "You must be Lily. I'm Enrico. Your mom is going to stay here with me for a few days. Is that okay with you?" Lily, who was usually shy around strangers, studied him with the serious expression she got when she was deciding something important. "Do you have dogs?" "No, but I have a garden with rabbits. Real ones, not invisible." Lily's face lit up. "Really? Really? Maybe tomorrow morning we can go see them. If your mom says it's okay." He glanced up at Eva, and there was something careful in his expression. Asking permission. Acknowledging that she was still the parent here. Still in control, even though nothing about this situation was controlled. Eva nodded, not trusting her voice. Enrico stood, gestured toward the door. "Let's get you both inside. I'm sure Lily's tired." The inside of the house was somehow more overwhelming than the outside. Marble floors, a staircase that curved up toward a second-floor landing, and artwork on the walls that Eva suspected was worth more than everything she'd owned in her entire life. But there was also warmth, soft lighting, furniture that looked comfortable rather than just expensive, and the smell of something baking coming from somewhere deeper in the house. Teresa led them upstairs to a suite of rooms that made Eva's studio apartment look like a closet. A bedroom with a king-sized bed, an attached bathroom with a soaking tub, and, through a connecting door, a smaller bedroom clearly set up for a child. There was a twin bed with a white comforter, a bookshelf filled with picture books, and a desk with markers and paper, already laid out. I wasn't sure what Lily liked, Enrico said from the doorway, hands in his pockets. Teresa did her best with short notice. Lily had already let go of Eva's hand and was exploring, running her fingers over the soft comforter, picking up markers to examine the colors. Mama, look! There's 100 markers. 12, Eva corrected automatically, but her voice was faint. This room alone probably cost more to furnish than Eva made in 6 months. The bathroom is stocked with toiletries. If you need anything else, just ask Teresa. She lives on the property. Enrico remained in the doorway, not entering, maintaining distance. I know this is overwhelming, but you're safe here. Both of you. Mama? Lily called from the bathroom. There's tiny soaps shaped like flowers. Eva managed a weak smile. Thank you. For all of this. Don't thank me yet. Enrico's expression was unreadable. This is going to get complicated before it gets simple, but we'll handle it. He left, before Eva could ask what complicated meant. Teresa showed them where the kitchen was. Help yourself to anything. Explained the security system. Doors lock automatically at 10 p.m., but you can override from inside. And then quietly disappeared. Eva spent an hour getting Lily ready for bed in a bathroom that had heated floors and a shower with 6 different nozzles. Lily chattered the entire time about the art room and the rabbits and how the soap really did smell like flowers. When Eva finally tucked her into the twin bed, the sheets were Egyptian cotton. Eva could tell from the thread count. Lily looked up at her with serious brown eyes. Mama, is something wrong? Is that why we're here? Eva had promised herself years ago that she would never lie to her daughter. Not about the big things. Someone made a mistake and thought Mama did something she didn't do. Enrico is helping us stay safe until it gets fixed. Like when Tommy said I took his crayon but I didn't. Exactly like that. Okay. Lily yawned, burrowing into the pillow. I like it here. It smells nice. Me too, baby. Eva kissed her forehead, smoothed back her curls. Go to sleep. We'll see those rabbits tomorrow. Lily was asleep in minutes, her breathing evening out into the soft rhythm that Eva had memorized over 5 years of watching her daughter sleep in a dozen different places. Cheap motels, shelters, the backseat of the Honda when they had nowhere else to go. Eva sat beside the bed for a long time, just watching. This room was bigger than their entire apartment. The silence was so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. And somewhere in this enormous house was a man who killed people, but read picture books on his phone. She should feel terrified. She should be planning an escape route. Instead, she felt something worse, the dangerous beginning of relief, of thinking maybe, just maybe, they could rest here. Eva knew from her psychology training what that was called. It was the first crack in the wall she'd built around herself. The moment when survival instincts started to confuse a captor for a savior. Except Enrico hadn't taken them captive. He'd offered shelter. And sometimes the most dangerous thing wasn't the monster offering protection. It was the exhausted part of yourself willing to accept it. Eva woke to sunlight streaming through windows she hadn't closed. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. The bed was too comfortable. The air smelled like vanilla and coffee instead of curry and car exhaust, and the silence was so complete, it felt alien. Then it all came back. The Mafia boss, the protection, Lily. Eva bolted upright, her heart hammering, and ran to the connecting room. Empty. The bed was made, badly, in the way only a 5-year-old could manage, with the blanket more off than on, and Lily's stuffed rabbit was gone. Eva yanked open the bedroom door, her breath coming too fast. The hallway was empty. She ran toward the stairs, her mind already spinning through worst-case scenarios. What if the cartel had gotten in overnight? What if Enrico had decided Lily was a liability? What if... The sound of laughter stopped her at the top of the staircase. Eva looked down into the living room below. Lily sat at a coffee table, paper spread in front of her, markers in hand. And across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, was Enrico. "And then you color the ears pink on the inside," Lily was explaining, very seriously. "Because that's how real rabbits look. Pink on the inside. Got it." Enrico picked up a marker, started coloring with the careful precision of someone who didn't usually draw rabbits. "Like this?" "Perfect." Lily beamed at him. "You're really good at coloring." "I had a good teacher." Eva's hands gripped the railing. She should go down there, should insert herself between her daughter and a man who'd admitted to killing people, should maintain boundaries. But Lily was smiling. Really, smiling, the kind of unguarded joy she used to have before her father left, and Eva's world collapsed into survival mode. And Enrico was... he was being gentle, patient, looking at Lily's drawing like it was the most important artwork he'd ever seen. Eva descended the stairs quietly. Enrico noticed her first, his eyes meeting hers with something that looked almost like apology. She woke up early. Teresa made breakfast, but Lily said she wanted to draw first. "It's okay." Eva's voice came out, steadier than she felt. "Good morning, Lilybug. Mama, look, Enrico helped me draw rabbits. Real ones, not invisible." Lily held up the paper, beaming. "Can we go see the real rabbits now, please?" Eva looked at Enrico, who stood and stepped back, deferring to her. "If your mom says yes." There it was again, that careful acknowledgement of her authority. It should have made her feel better. Instead, it made her wonder what kind of man someone had to be to wield absolute power in his world but still ask a 5-year-old's mother for permission about rabbits. "After breakfast," Eva said, "and you need to brush your teeth." "Okay." Lily scrambled up, grabbed Enrico's hand without hesitation. "Come on, we have to eat really fast so we can see the rabbits." Enrico let himself be pulled toward the kitchen, glancing back at Eva with an expression that was almost helpless. She followed, trying to reconcile the man who'd casually mentioned dealing with assassins with the one currently being dragged toward breakfast by an enthusiastic 5-year-old. The kitchen was massive, all granite and stainless steel, with a table that could seat 12. Teresa was pulling muffins from the oven, and the smell made Eva's stomach clench with hunger she'd been ignoring. Lily climbed into a chair, swinging her legs. Enrico sat beside her, and Eva took the seat across, feeling like she'd walked into someone else's life and was still learning the script. Teresa set down plates. Scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, muffins still warm from the oven. Lily's eyes went wide. "Is this all for us?" "All for you," Teresa said with a smile. "Eat as much as you want, honey." Eva watched Lily load her plate with more food than she'd probably seen it once in months. Watched her daughter eat with the single-minded focus of a child who'd learned not to take full meals for granted, and felt something crack open in her chest that she'd been keeping locked tight. "Ms. Simpson," Enrico's voice was quiet. "You should eat too." Eva realized she'd been sitting frozen, just watching. She picked up a fork, forced herself to take a bite. The eggs were perfect, seasoned with something she couldn't name. The muffin dissolved on her tongue like sugar and butter and everything she'd been too tired to bake for Lily. It tasted like giving up, like accepting help, like the beginning of something she couldn't take back. "Mama, can I have more?" Lily held up her plate, and there was blueberry muffin crumb on her chin. "Of course, baby." Eva met Enrico's eyes across the table. He was watching them both with an intensity she couldn't quite read. Not predatory, not threatening. Something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. Like he'd seen this before. Like he understood what it meant to sit at a table with more food than you needed and not know how to accept it. After this, Enrico said to Lily, we'll go see the rabbits, and maybe check out that art room Teresa mentioned. Really? Lily bounced in her seat. Did you hear that, Mama? An art room. I heard, Lilybug. Eva forced herself to keep eating, to stay present, to not think about the fact that her daughter was sitting next to a man who'd killed people and acting like he was the most normal thing in the world. Because maybe, in this moment, he was. Maybe danger came in different shapes. Maybe the real threat wasn't the man offering protection, but the world that made protection necessary. Eva didn't know. She only knew that Lily was eating a full breakfast for the first time in weeks, and that was enough to make her stay through this meal. This morning, this impossible situation where everything was wrong except the parts that felt terrifyingly right. The rabbits lived in a hutch near the back garden, where ivy climbed a brick wall and roses bloomed despite the October chill. Lily pressed her face to the wire mesh, whispering to the rabbits like they could understand her. The gray one's name should be Cloudy, and the white one can be Marshmallow. Enrico crouched beside her, his expensive slacks touching the ground without hesitation. Those are good names, better than what I've been calling them. What do you call them? Rabbit 1 and Rabbit 2. Lily giggled, the sound bright and uncomplicated. That's silly. Rabbits need real names. Eva stood a few feet back, arms crossed against the cold, watching this surreal domestic scene. The linebacker from last night, whose name she'd learned was Marcus, stood near the garden entrance, eyes scanning the perimeter even though they were behind a 10-foot wall. Your property is beautiful, Eva said to fill the silence. Thank you. My mother loved gardens. Enrico's voice shifted, something careful entering it. She used to say that anything that grows in soil can't be all bad, even if the person tending it is. Eva recognized trauma when she heard it, the kind that lived in casual references, the offhand comments that revealed cracks in the foundation. You mentioned her before. I'm sorry you lost her. I was 7. He stood, brushing off his knees. Old enough to remember everything. Not old enough to stop it. Lily was trying to coax Marshmallow closer to the mesh, holding out a piece of lettuce Teresa had given her. She wasn't paying attention to the adult conversation, lost in her own world where rabbits had names and gardens were magic. Is that why you help people? Eva asked quietly. Women and children, specifically? Enrico's jaw tightened. I don't help people. I run a criminal organization. Let's not romanticize what I do. I'm not. I'm asking if your trauma response manifests as protection behavior toward vulnerable populations that mirror your mother's situation. Eva heard herself slip into clinical language, the detachment of analysis. It's a common pattern. He turned to look at her fully, and there was something dangerous in his eyes now. Not threatening her, but warning her. Be careful, Ms. Simpson. Analyzing me might give you answers you're not ready for. I'm a psychologist. I analyze people. It's what I do. Then analyze this. I watched my mother bleed out on our kitchen floor while men laughed about it. I was too small to stop them. Too weak to even scream loud enough for neighbors to hear. So now I make sure I'm never too small or too weak again. That's not trauma response. That's logic. It's both, Eva said softly. And there's no shame in that. Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, or the beginning of respect. Before he could respond, Lily called out, Mama! Cloudy touched my finger. Eva walked over, crouched beside her daughter. That's because you're being very gentle and patient. Rabbits like gentle people. I'm very gentle, Lily said seriously, like you taught me. I know you are, baby. Enrico watched them for a moment, then said to Marcus, I need to make some calls. Can you stay with them? Marcus nodded, Enrico walked back toward the house, his shoulders tight in a way that suggested Eva had touched something he didn't want examined. She'd seen it before in her clinical work, the moment when someone realized you could see past the armor they'd built. The problem was, Eva wasn't his therapist. She was a woman living in his house with her daughter, dependent on his protection, and getting too close to understanding him was dangerous for reasons that had nothing to do with professional boundaries. They spent the morning in the art room, which was actually a converted sunroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden. Lily painted with watercolors, while Eva pretended to read a magazine and actually watched Marcus standing guard near the door. "Does he ever relax?" Eva asked. Marcus, who probably wasn't supposed to engage in conversation, glanced over. "Not while I'm on duty, ma'am. You can call me Eva. Ma'am makes me feel like a school teacher." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Understood, Eva. And to answer your question, Mr. Cruz takes security seriously. That means we do too. How long have you worked for him?" 8 years. Marcus's expression was neutral, but there was loyalty underneath it. "He's a fair employer. Treats people with respect as long as they earn it. And if they don't, then they don't work for him anymore." The euphemism hung in the air. Eva didn't push. She was learning that in this world direct questions got evasive answers, but observation revealed everything. Lily held up her painting, a lopsided garden with rabbits that looked more like clouds with legs. "Mama, look! It's Cloudy and Marshmallow's house." "It's beautiful, Lilybug. Let's let it dry and we can hang it in your room." "Can I make one for Enrico too? To say thank you for letting us see the rabbits?" Eva's chest tightened. "That's very thoughtful, baby. I'm sure he'd like that." Lily immediately started a new painting, her tongue poking out in concentration. Eva watched her daughter create something beautiful in a room full of light, and tried not to think about how easily Lily was adapting, how quickly she'd accepted this surreal new normal. Children were resilient. Eva knew that professionally. But resilience had a cost. It meant learning to survive in whatever environment you landed in, even if that environment was a Mafia boss's house. Lunch was in the formal dining room, which felt absurd for 3 people, but apparently was standard. Enrico appeared from wherever he'd been working, his expression controlled but tired. He'd changed into a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, and Eva noticed for the first time the edge of a tattoo on his forearm. Something dark and intricate she couldn't quite see. Lily immediately ran over with her second painting, still slightly damp. "I made this for you. It's you and me looking at the rabbits." Enrico took the painting carefully, studying it with the same intensity he probably used for contract negotiations. The figures were childish, barely recognizable, but Lily had drawn a tall person and a small person standing together, and there were 2 blobs that were allegedly rabbits. "This is excellent, Lily. Thank you." He crouched down again. Eva was noticing he always met Lily at her level, never towered over her. "Can I keep it?" "Yes. You can put it on your fridge if you want. That's where Mama puts my best ones." "Then that's exactly where it'll go." He stood, caught Eva's eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. An acknowledgement that this, Lily making art for him accepting it like it mattered, was shifting the dynamic into territory neither of them had planned for. They ate chicken and vegetables that were probably locally sourced and organic, based on how good they tasted. Lily chattered about the rabbits, about the art room, about how her bed was so comfy I had dreams about clouds. Enrico answered her questions with patience, asked about her school, listened to a 5-minute explanation about her invisible dog that somehow Eva had never heard before. And Eva watched them both, trying to ignore the warmth spreading in her chest. The dangerous feeling that maybe this wasn't temporary, that maybe they could stay in this strange shelter where Lily had enough food, and Eva could breathe without calculating bills. After lunch, While Lily was watching a movie in the living room with Marcus hovering nearby, Enrico asked Eva to follow him to his office. The room was all dark wood and leather, with bookshelves lining the walls and a desk that looked antique. It smelled like paper and something else. Whiskey, maybe. Or the expensive cologne she'd noticed he wore. "I need to show you something." Enrico pulled up footage on a laptop. Security camera angles of a street Eva didn't recognize. "This is from this morning, 2 blocks from Lily's school." Eva's blood went cold. On the screen, a man sat in a parked car watching the drop-off line. The camera angle wasn't great, but Eva could see enough to recognize purpose in his posture. "They're still watching," she whispered. "Yes. They won't make a move yet. Too public, too many witnesses, but they're letting me know they haven't forgotten." Enrico closed the laptop. "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know what we're dealing with. Not to frighten you, but because you're intelligent and you need information to make decisions." "What kind of decisions?" "How long you stay here, whether you trust me, what happens next." He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "The cartel wants me to negotiate. I'm not going to. That would signal weakness, so they'll escalate." "Escalate how?" "They'll try to grab Lily to force my hand, or they'll try to grab you and use Lily as leverage. Either way, your daughter becomes the pressure point." His voice was clinical, but Eva could see tension in his jaw. "I won't let that happen." "How can you promise that?" "Because I have more resources, more men, and more motivation than they do. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Eva looked at this man who'd killed people and made rabbit names with her daughter, who analyzed threats with cold precision, but had hung a child's painting on his refrigerator. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But I'm trying." "That's honest. I can work with honest." He pushed off from the desk. "There's one more thing. I want you to start consulting on behavioral analysis. Not for violent work," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "For business negotiations, meetings with other organizations. I need someone who can read tells, spot lies, identify threats before they become problems. You want to pay me to profile criminals. I want to utilize your skills in a way that keeps you and Lily safe while giving you agency. You're not charity, Eva. You have value beyond being someone I'm protecting." His eyes were intense. "Say yes or no, but don't say no because you think you have to." Eva's mind raced. This was how it happened. How good people got pulled into bad worlds. Small compromises, reasonable justifications, the slow erosion of boundaries until you couldn't remember where the line had been. But Lily was alive and safe and eating 3 meals a day. And Eva's psychology degree had been gathering dust for 4 years while she served pasta to people who didn't see her as human. "I'll try it," she heard herself say. "Once. And if I hate it or if it feels wrong, I stop. No questions." "Agreed." Enrico extended his hand. "Partners then. For now." Eva shook it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip, knowing that she'd just crossed a line she'd sworn she'd never approach. But sometimes survival meant making choices that would horrify the person you used to be. And Eva had stopped being that person the day her ex-husband drained their accounts and left her pregnant and alone. Maybe she'd been heading toward this moment all along. Maybe Enrico Cruz wasn't the trap. Maybe he was just the first person honest enough to show her what survival actually cost. The meeting happened on a Thursday, 9 days after Eva and Lily moved into Enrico's house. 9 days that had started to feel almost normal. Lily went to school with Marcus driving them in an armored SUV. Eva worked remotely on her law firm data entry in Enrico's office, and dinners happened around that enormous table with Teresa cooking food that made Lily ask if they were rich now. Eva always said no. They were just visiting. but the lie was getting harder to maintain. "The Kowalski family is coming tonight," Enrico told her over breakfast. "They run the docks. We're negotiating shipping routes." "And you want me to—" "What? Watch them?" "Watch them. Tell me what they're not saying. They've been reliable partners for 5 years, but something shifted last month. I need to know if it's a threat or just business stress." Eva set down her coffee. Lily was still asleep upstairs, giving them rare privacy. "You're asking me to help you determine if someone might betray you. I'm asking you to do what you did at Rossi's. See what I'm too close to see. And if I see something, what happens to them?" Enrico's expression didn't change. "That depends on what you see. But I'm not asking you to pronounce a death sentence, Eva. I'm asking for information. What I do with it is on me." The distinction felt thin, but Eva had already agreed, and backing out now felt like cowardice. "What time?" 8. "Wear something professional. They'll assume you're my attorney." "I look like a lawyer?" The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You look like someone who sees too much and doesn't apologize for it. That's close enough." That evening, Eva stood in front of the closet in her room, a closet that had mysteriously filled with clothes in her size sometime during the first week. She'd asked Teresa about it, and Teresa had just smiled and said, "Mr. Cruz wanted you to be comfortable." The dresses were simple but expensive. Eva chose a charcoal sheath dress and low heels, pulled her hair back and studied herself in the mirror. She looked like someone she didn't recognize. Someone professional and pulled together, and not at all like a woman who'd been serving pasta for tips 2 weeks ago. Lily was already asleep, her door guarded by Marcus, who took night shift protection seriously. Eva kissed her daughter's forehead, breathed in the smell of strawberry shampoo, and tried to calm the anxiety clawing at her chest. Downstairs, the dining room had been transformed into a negotiation space. The table was set with documents and tablets instead of food. Enrico stood near the window, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Eva's old car, talking quietly on his phone. He ended the call when he saw her. "You look perfect. Remember, you're observing, not participating. They won't expect you to talk. And if they ask who I am, legal counsel, they won't push." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "If at any point you're uncomfortable, leave. No one will question it." Before Eva could respond, Teresa appeared at the doorway. "They're here, Mr. Cruz." The Kowalski family consisted of 3 men. Victor, the patriarch in his 60s with silver hair and a face like carved granite. His son Anton, maybe 40, with nervous energy and eyes that never stayed still. And someone introduced as their business advisor, a thin man with an Eastern European accent and absolutely no warmth in his smile. Eva sat in the corner with a legal pad, pen poised like she was taking notes. In reality, she was cataloging everything her training had taught her to notice. Victor sat with his hands folded, shoulders relaxed, meeting Enrico's eyes steadily. Confident, not threatened. Anton kept touching his tie, adjusting his cuffs, crossing and uncrossing his legs. Anxiety. But was it situational or indicative of deception? The advisor, his name was Dmitri, sat perfectly still, watching Enrico with the kind of focus that made Eva's instincts scream. Predatory. Calculating. The conversation was about shipping schedules and container fees, details that Eva didn't fully understand but didn't need to. She was watching the subtext. "And the new route through Toledo gives us better access," Victor was saying. "Cut costs by 15%. 15% is significant." Enrico leaned back in his chair. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just better logistics." Anton shifted again, his hand going to his tie. Eva wrote on her legal pad, "Son is uncomfortable, knows something father doesn't, or disagrees with approach." Dimitri, you've been quiet. Enrico's attention shifted to the advisor. What's your analysis? Dimitri smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. I think Victor is being generous. Perhaps too generous. One might wonder why. The temperature in the room dropped. Victor's shoulders stiffened slightly. Tell. He hadn't expected Dimitri to challenge him. We value our partnership with the Cruz family, Victor said carefully. Good business is about mutual benefit. Of course. Enrico's voice was pleasant, but Eva could see the calculation in his eyes. He'd noticed the same thing she had. Victor and Dimitri weren't on the same page. The meeting continued for another hour. Contracts discussed, numbers exchanged. Eva filled her legal pad with observations. Victor genuinely believes the deal is good. No deception in body language. Anton is afraid of something. Keeps looking at Dimitri when he thinks no one's watching. Dimitri is running a separate agenda. Micro-expressions of satisfaction when Victor talks, but contempt when Anton speaks. When the Kowalskis finally left, with handshakes and promises to finalize details next week, Enrico waited until Teresa confirmed their car had left the property. Then he turned to Eva. Tell me. Eva set down her legal pad. Victor's clean. He believes what... He's selling you. But Dimitri's the problem. He's positioning himself to replace Victor, probably using Anton as a pawn. Anton knows something is wrong, but he's too afraid to speak up. You got all that from watching them sit at a table? I got it from watching Anton defer to Dimitri instead of his father. From the way Dimitri smiled when Victor talked about partnership, like he was humoring a child. From the micro-expression of disgust when Anton spoke, which suggests Dimitri sees him as weak. Eva met his eyes. Dimitri's planning something, and when it happens, Victor won't see it coming. Enrico was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he pulled out his phone, sent a text. I'll have Victor warned, discreetly. What about Dimitri? Dimitri will be handled. His tone made it clear that handled was a euphemism for something Eva didn't want details about. She should have felt guilty. Should have questioned whether she'd just condemned a man to death by reading his body language. But all she felt was a strange sense of satisfaction. She'd been right. Her skills mattered. She'd seen something that could have gotten Enrico killed if left unchecked. You're good at this, Enrico said quietly. I had good training. No. You have good instincts. Training taught you to recognize them. But the instincts were always there. He moved closer, and Eva was suddenly very aware of the empty room, the late hour, the way his eyes tracked every micro-expression on her face, the same way she'd tracked the Kowalskis. I should check on Lily, Eva said, breaking the moment. Of course. He stepped back, hands in his pockets. Eva, thank you. What you did tonight was important. You might have just prevented a war. Or started one. That's on me, not you. Remember that. Eva left before the weight of what she'd done could fully sink in. Upstairs, she stood in Lily's doorway, watching her daughter sleep in a bed that cost more than their old couch. Marcus nodded to her, from his post, and Eva nodded back. This was their life now. Protected by men who killed people. Living in luxury funded by illegal enterprises. Using her psychology degree to help a Mafia boss identify threats. Eva had spent 4 years studying the criminal mind. Now she was living inside it, helping it function better. And the terrifying part was how easy it had become. She crawled into her own bed, king-sized memory foam, sheets that felt like silk, and stared at the ceiling. Wondering when she'd stopped fighting this, when survival had turned into acceptance, had turned into something that felt almost like belonging. And whether that made her smart, or just another person who'd lost their way in small increments, one compromise at a time. The call came at 2 a.m. Eva woke to pounding on her door, Marcus's voice urgent. "Eva, we need to move. Now." She was out of bed before her brain fully engaged, running to Lily's room. Her daughter was already awake, clutched to Teresa's chest, eyes wide with fear. "Mama?" "It's okay, baby. We're okay." Eva took Lily from Teresa, felt her daughter's heart hammering against her own. "What's happening?" "Cartel moved on the school," Marcus said grimly. "They didn't know Lily wasn't there. We changed her schedule. But they know the property now. We need to relocate." Enrico appeared in the hallway, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, gun visible in his waistband. His hair was disheveled, and Eva realized this was the first time she'd seen him look anything other than perfectly controlled. "There's a safe house in Lake Forest. We're taking both of them now." He looked at Eva, and there was something raw in his expression. "I'm sorry. I thought we had more time." "How many?" Eva asked, her training kicking in even through the fear. 3 vehicles. Professional team. My security engaged before they reached the gate." His jaw tightened. "No one got inside. But they sent a message." "What message?" "That they're done waiting." Lily whimpered against Eva's neck. "Mama, I'm scared." "I know, baby. But Marcus and Enrico are going to keep us safe. Remember how we talked about brave? This is when we're brave." Eva kissed her daughter's head, trying to stop her own hands from shaking. They moved through the house like a tactical unit. Marcus in front, Enrico behind, Teresa packing bags with efficient speed. Within 10 minutes, they were in an SUV with bulletproof glass, pulling away from the mansion as dawn started to gray the sky. Lily fell back asleep in the car seat, exhausted by fear. Eva sat beside her, one hand on her daughter's leg, the other gripping the door handle like it could anchor her to reality. Enrico sat in the passenger seat, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. Planning, strategizing, doing whatever men like him did when their territory was invaded. When he finally ended the call, Eva asked quietly, "Did anyone die?" 3 of theirs. 1 of mine in the hospital." His voice was flat. "This is what I tried to prevent. It's not your fault. Isn't it?" He turned to look at her, and for the first time Eva saw guilt there. Real, human guilt. "I brought you into this, made you a target by protecting you. They made me a target when I saved your life. You're just the only one trying to keep me alive." Eva met his eyes. "Don't take credit for their choices." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. Before he could respond, Marcus spoke from the driver's seat. "Safe house in 15 minutes, boss." Enrico nodded, turned back to face forward. But his shoulders had relaxed slightly, and Eva knew her words had landed. The safe house was a cabin that looked like a millionaire's vacation retreat. All windows and modern architecture, nestled in woods that made Eva's city-trained brain scream about tactical disadvantages. But inside was the same level of security as the mansion. Cameras, reinforced doors, and Marcus doing a sweep before letting them enter. Teresa had somehow beaten them there, the kitchen already stocked with food. Lily woke up confused and scared, and Eva spent an hour in the master bedroom calming her down, singing songs and stroking her hair until she finally fell back asleep as the sun rose. When Eva emerged, Enrico was standing on the deck, staring into the woods. He'd changed into clothes that had been waiting here. Someone on his team was eerily efficient, and looked exhausted in a way she hadn't seen before. Eva joined him, wrapping her arms around herself against the morning chill. "Is this going to end?" "Yes, one way or another." He glanced at her. "I'm going to offer them a deal. Territory in exchange for leaving you alone. It'll cost me, but it'll end this." "You'd give up territory for us?" I'd give up more than that. His voice was quiet, but absolute. I told you. I know what it looks like when a child's world ends. I won't let that happen to Lily. Ava's throat tightened. She's not your responsibility. Neither were you. But here we are. He turned to face her fully. I'm not doing this because I'm noble, Ava. I'm doing it because I'm selfish. Because having you and Lily in my house made me remember what it felt like to have people to protect. To have a reason to come home. And I'm not ready to give that up. The confession hung in the cold morning air. Ava should have been afraid of it. The possessiveness, the intensity, the way he'd made them part of his world without asking permission. But all she felt was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being alone. Tired of pretending that the last 2 weeks hadn't changed something fundamental in how she saw safety and strength and the man standing in front of her. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Okay, we stay. We trust you. We see where this goes. Eva held his gaze. But if you ever lie to me, or if Lily gets hurt because of your world, I'm gone. No second chances. I wouldn't give you one. He extended his hand, and Eva recognized the gesture, the same one from his office, when they'd become partners. Deal. She shook it, sealing something she didn't have words for yet. A partnership that was becoming something else. A shelter that was starting to feel like home. And maybe that was okay. Maybe survival didn't always look the way you expected. Maybe sometimes it looked like a Mafia boss on a deck at sunrise, promising to burn his own empire down before he'd let yours burn first. The negotiation happened in a warehouse on the industrial edge of Chicago, neutral territory that smelled like rust and old concrete. Enrico brought Marcus and 2 other men whose names Eva didn't learn. The cartel brought a delegation led by someone introduced only as Vargas, a man in his 50s who smiled too much. Eva wasn't supposed to be there. Enrico had been clear. She and Lily would stay at the safe house with Teresa and additional security. This wasn't her world, wasn't her fight. But when Enrico's phone buzzed at 7 a.m. with a message from Vargas, Eva saw his expression change, saw the micro-expression of controlled rage that meant something had shifted. They want you there, he said quietly, setting down his coffee. As proof you're alive. They think I might have killed you to remove the complication. So I'm leverage. Your verification. His eyes were hard. I can refuse. We can find another way. Eva thought about Lily sleeping upstairs, about the fact that they'd been at the safe house for 3 days with no resolution. Thought about how every day this dragged on was another day her daughter lived in fear. I'll go, but Lily stays here with Teresa and half your security team. Done. Enrico pulled out his phone, started making calls. Within an hour, the plan was set. The warehouse made Ava's skin crawl. Too many shadows, too many exits, too many ways this could go wrong. Marcus stayed close to her side, his hand near his concealed weapon, while Enrico walked ahead with that controlled confidence. That meant he was calculating every angle. Vargas stood in the center of the space, flanked by 6 men who looked like they'd stepped out of a cartel recruitment video. Expensive watches, visible weapons, expressions that said they'd seen and done things that would give normal people nightmares. Mr. Cruz. Vargas's smile widened. And this must be the famous Waitress, the one who sees things. Eva kept her expression neutral, her psychology training kicking in. Vargas was trying to intimidate her, to see if she'd flinch. She met his eyes steadily, cataloging everything. The way he stood too casually, the expensive suit that didn't fit quite right, the micro-expression of frustration when she didn't react. Let's skip the theater, Enrico said coldly. You wanted verification she's alive. You have it. Now we talk terms. Of course. Terms. Vargas circled slowly, and Eva recognized it as a dominance display. predator showing the prey he controlled the space. You want us to leave the waitress alone, to forget she interfered. That's difficult. Everything's difficult until it's not. I'm offering you the Toledo route. Full access. 20% of the revenue for the first year. Eva watched Vargas's eyes widen slightly. Surprise. The offer was bigger than he'd expected, which meant Enrico was serious about ending this, regardless of the cost. Generous, Vargas said slowly. But the Toledo route alone doesn't make us forget that your consultant cost us 3 men. Your men came onto my property. I defended it. That's not Eva's fault. Perhaps not. But perception matters, Mr. Cruz. My employers in Tijuana want to know you take them seriously, that you understand there are consequences for interference. Eva's pulse quickened. This was a shakedown. They wanted more than territory. They wanted Enrico to bend, to show weakness. What do you want? Enrico's voice was flat. A gesture of good faith, something that shows you value peace over pride. Vargas's smile returned. Send the waitress to Mexico for 48 hours. Not as a hostage, as a guest. She returns unharmed. We have our verification that you're committed to resolution. Everyone moves forward. The temperature in the warehouse plummeted. Marcus's hand moved closer to his weapon. Enrico's expression didn't change, but Eva saw his jaw tighten incrementally. No. Then we have a problem. Vargas spread his hands. You see, my employers wonder if you've gone soft, if your attachment to this woman has compromised your judgment. Sending her to us proves you're still a businessman, that you understand sometimes we sacrifice pawns to protect kings. Eva's stomach dropped. This was never about verification. This was about breaking Enrico, about proving the cartel could take something he valued and he'd let them. I'm not a pawn, Eva said quietly, before Enrico could respond. Vargas's attention snapped to her, surprised she'd spoken. Excuse me? I'm not a pawn. And if you think sending me to Mexico would prove anything except that you're terrified of what I represent, then you're not as smart as you think you are. Eva felt Marcus tense beside her, but she kept talking, her voice steady. You don't want verification. You want humiliation. You want to prove that Enrico Cruz will trade human beings for shipping routes. But that's not going to happen. Eva... Enrico's voice held a warning. But Eva was done being quiet. Done being the reason men negotiated her safety like she was property. You want the Toledo route? Take it. You want 20%? Fine. But I'm not part of this deal. I'm not a bargaining chip. And if you can't negotiate without threatening women, then maybe you're the one who's gone soft. Silence. Vargas stared at her, his smile gone. Then he started laughing, a genuine sound that echoed through the warehouse. She's got fire, Cruz. I see why you're attached. He shook his head. My employers won't like it, but I respect it. You've got balls, waitress. Or maybe you're just stupid. Maybe both, Eva said evenly. Vargas looked at Enrico. You're lucky, you know. Most men in your position would have handed her over just to end this. The fact that you won't... He paused. That tells me something. It tells you I keep my word. I said she's under my protection. That's not negotiable. Fine. Then we do this another way. Vargas pulled out his phone, sent a text. I'm recommending to my employers that we accept the territory deal. Full access to Toledo. 20% for 2 years instead of 1. In exchange, the waitress becomes untouchable. We spread the word. She's Cruz's people. Anyone touches her answers to both of us. Enrico's expression didn't shift, but Eva saw relief flicker in his eyes. Agreed. One condition. She works for you officially, not as some hidden consultant, but publicly. That way everyone knows she's protected by your organization, not just some woman you're keeping safe. Vargas smiled at Eva. You wanted agency, Waitress. Now you'll have it. Welcome to the criminal underworld. Hope you survive it. The ride back to the safe house was silent. Eva sat in the back of the SUV, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Marcus drove, occasionally glancing at her in the rearview mirror with something that might have been respect. Enrico sat beside her, jaw tight, staring out the window. You're angry, Eva finally said. You took a risk. I took control. There's a difference. You could have gotten yourself killed. He turned to face her. What you did in there, calling out Vargas, refusing to be traded, that was either very brave or very stupid. You said yourself, everything's about perception. If I'd stayed quiet, I would have been a thing. By speaking up, I became a person. People are harder to trade. Eva met his eyes. You taught me that. By giving me agency, by treating me like a partner, you showed me how to survive in your world. Enrico was quiet for a long moment. Then he said softly, You were right earlier. About why I do this. About the trauma response. He looked down at his hands. My mother used to say that power without protection is just cruelty. I spent 20 years building power, but I forgot about the protection until I met you and Lily. You didn't forget. You just didn't have anyone to protect. I had a whole organization. That's not the same. Eva reached over, covered his hand with hers. The gesture was intimate, crossing a boundary they'd been dancing around for weeks. Organizations are about control. Families are about trust. You're learning the difference. His fingers curled around hers, and Eva felt the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip, felt the weight of what they were becoming, not just protector and protected, but partners navigating something neither of them knew how to name. When they pulled up to the safe house, Lily was on the porch with Teresa, waiting. She saw the SUV and ran down the steps, launching herself at Eva the moment the door opened. Mama, you're back. Teresa said you went to a meeting and I was worried and I drew you 17 pictures. Eva scooped her up, breathing in strawberry shampoo and safety. I'm sorry I worried you, Lilybug. But I'm here. I'm okay. Promise? Promise. Over Lily's head, Eva met Enrico's eyes. He was watching them with that expression she'd learned to read, longing mixed with determination. The look of someone who'd found something, worth protecting, and would burn the world down before he'd let it go. And Eva realized she was looking at him the same way, with trust that shouldn't exist, but did, with gratitude that felt like something deeper, with the beginning of something that terrified her more than any cartel threat. Because falling for a good man was hard, but falling for a dangerous one who was trying to be good? That was how women lost themselves. Except Eva had already lost herself when her ex-husband left her with nothing. Maybe finding herself in the ruins looked like this. A mafia boss holding a child's drawing like it was precious, a daughter sleeping safely in bulletproof luxury, and a future that didn't look anything like the one she'd planned, but felt more real than anything she'd known. Come inside, Teresa called from the porch. Dinner's ready, and Lily helped make dessert. I made brownies. Lily wiggled down, grabbed Eva's hand, started pulling her toward the house. And they only burned a little bit on the bottom. Enrico fell into step beside them, and for a moment they walked together like a family. Not the conventional kind, but the kind forged in fire and held together by choice rather than blood. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. The call came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning that smelled like autumn and new beginnings. Eva was in Enrico's office, her office now, technically, with a nameplate that said E. Simpson Behavioral Consultant, and a salary that had made her cry when she saw the contract, reviewing files on a potential business partner. Lily was at school, the real school now, not just the safe house's remote learning. Marcus dropped her off and picked her up, and Lily had stopped asking when they were going home because this had become home. Enrico's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and something in his expression made Eva look up. "It's done," he said quietly. Vargas confirmed. "The cartel's leadership signed off on the agreement. You're untouchable." Eva set down her pen, letting the words sink in. 3 weeks of waiting, of living in protective limbo, of wondering if every day would be the one when the threat returned. And now it was over. Just like that? Just like that. Enrico leaned back in his chair. The Toledo route is generating enough revenue that they've forgotten about everything else. Business beats grudges, usually. "What happens now?" Eva asked. "Now we go back to the mansion. Now Lily goes to school without armed security in the parking lot. Now you decide what you want your life to look like." His eyes held hers. "Because you're free to leave, Eva. The threat is neutralized. You and Lily can go back to your apartment, your old jobs, your old life. No one's stopping you." Eva's chest tightened. She'd known this moment was coming, the moment when the emergency was over and she'd have to choose. Stay in this strange new world, or return to the poverty and struggle that was at least familiar. "And if I don't want my old life back?" Enrico went very still. "What do you want?" "I want Lily to keep sleeping in a bed that doesn't have springs poking through. I want to use my degree doing work that matters. I want—" Eva paused, gathering courage. "I want to know if this is real, or if it's just trauma bonding and proximity, and the fact that you're the first person in years who's made me feel safe. It's real." His voice was low, certain. "At least for me. Has been since you refused to be traded like property in that warehouse. Since I watched you read Lily stories in a bulletproof house and still make her laugh. Since I realized that having you in my life made me want to be the man you see when you look at me." Eva's throat closed. "I see someone who's trying, who's failed and keeps trying anyway, who reads picture books on his phone and hangs children's art on refrigerators and built an entire security apparatus around keeping a 5-year-old's world intact. Is that enough? For you?" The vulnerability in his voice was raw, unguarded. "Because I can't offer you normal, Eva. I can offer you safety, resources, a life where Lily never has to choose between groceries and electricity. But I can't offer you a husband who works 9 to 5 and doesn't have blood on his hands. I don't want normal." Eva stood, walked around the desk until she was standing in front of him. "Normal left me with $43 and a daughter who thought invisible dogs, didn't need food. Normal didn't see me as anything except a waitress who could be ignored." She reached out, touched his face, felt the tension in his jaw. "You see me. Not just the psychology degree or the useful skills, but me. The person who's terrified and trying anyway. The mother who'll do anything to protect her child. The woman who's so tired of surviving alone." Enrico pulled her closer, his hands settling on her waist. "Then stay. Not because you're in danger, but because you want to. Build a life here. With me, with Lily, with whatever family looks like when it's chosen instead of assigned. What about your world, the violence, I can't change what I am, but I can change how I am. For you, for Lily." His forehead touched hers. "I've spent 20 years building power. Let me spend the next 20 building something worth having power for." Eva kissed him. It was tentative at first, testing, but then it deepened into something that felt like promise. Like the end of one story and the beginning of another. When they finally pulled apart, Eva was smiling through tears she hadn't realized she was crying. "Lily's going to have opinions about this," she said. "Lily's been asking when I'm officially her TO for 2 weeks." Enrico's mouth curved. "I think she's already decided. She's 5. She doesn't get to decide who I date. But she gets input. Always. He tucked a strand of hair behind Ava's ear. We do this right, Ava. Slowly. Honestly. With therapy for all of us, probably. And if it doesn't work, if you wake up one day and realize this was a mistake, you walk away. No threats, no pressure. You and Lily will be protected and provided for regardless. You're giving me an exit strategy before we've even started. I'm giving you choice. Always. His eyes were serious. Because that's what love looks like in my world. Not possession. Choice. 6 months later, Eva stood in the garden watching Lily chase Marshmallow and Cloudy across the grass. The rabbits had gotten bigger, and Lily had gotten braver, and the garden had become their favorite place for Saturday mornings. Enrico emerged from the house with coffee, handed her a mug. Marcus says Lily wants a dog for her birthday. Of course she does. She's been campaigning for weeks. Eva leaned against him, comfortable with the closeness now. What do you think? I think we have a big property and excellent security, so why not? He paused. Also, I may have already been researching breeds that are good with children. Eva laughed. You're such a softie. Only for you too. Everyone else still thinks I'm terrifying. Good. Keep them scared. She turned to face him. I submitted the adoption paperwork yesterday. For Lily. The lawyer said it should go through in 60 days. Enrico's expression shifted. That raw vulnerability he only showed with her. You're sure? I'm sure. You've been her father in every way that matters for 6 months. Might as well make it legal. Eva touched his face. Besides, she needs your last name for school registration. Lily Cruz has a nice ring to it. Lily Cruz, he repeated softly. Our daughter. Our daughter. Lily noticed them watching and waved enthusiastically. Mama, Enrico, Marshmallow pooped. Is that good luck? I don't think that's how good luck works, baby, Eva called back. It could be. We should ask Teresa. Lily ran toward the house, rabbits forgotten, on a mission to consult Teresa about rabbit poop and luck. Enrico pulled Eva closer, kissing the top of her head. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For seeing me. For staying. For letting me be part of this. He gestured at the garden, the house, the life they'd built. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A home that feels like more than just a safe place to sleep. You earned it, by being someone worth staying for. Eva looked up at him. We're happy, Enrico. Against all odds, we're happy. We are. He smiled, the rare full smile that transformed his face from dangerous to beautiful. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure it stays that way. Inside, they could hear Lily's voice chattering to Teresa about rabbits and birthdays, and maybe getting a dog named Sparkle. The house smelled like Teresa's baking, and the morning light filtered through windows that no longer felt like barriers, but like frames for the life they were building. Eva had spent 4 years studying criminal psychology, learning about trauma and survival, and the patterns that broke people. She'd never expected to use that knowledge to rebuild herself, to find family in the ruins of fear, to discover that sometimes the most dangerous man in Chicago was also the safest place to land. But here they were, a mafia boss, a former waitress, and a 5-year-old who named rabbits and believed in invisible dogs. Not a conventional family, but a real one. And that was everything. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the heroes from storybooks. Sometimes they're the ones everyone told us to fear. The dangerous ones, the complicated ones, the ones carrying so much darkness they almost forget what light looks like. Until someone shows them. Eva had saved Enrico's life by seeing what no one else could see. But he'd saved hers by giving her something she'd lost years ago. the belief that she deserved to be protected instead of just surviving, that her daughter deserved childhood instead of just endurance, that asking for help wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing you could do. And Lily? Lily saved them both by being exactly who she was, a child who drew rabbits and asked impossible questions and loved without calculation, who reminded two broken adults that family wasn't about blood or perfection. It was about showing up, about choosing each other, about building something good in the spaces where darkness used to live. Maybe that's what redemption really means. Not erasing the past, but building a future in spite of it. Not being perfect, but being present. Not having all the answers, but having the courage to keep asking questions. Enrico would never be a saint. His past would always be written in violence and choices that couldn't be undone. But he was a good father, a devoted partner, a man who'd learned that power meant nothing without someone to share it with. Eva would never stop being the woman who'd served pasta and counted pennies and feared every knock on the door. But she was also the woman who'd stared down a cartel, who'd built a career analyzing the criminals she used to fear, who'd learned that strength sometimes looked like accepting protection instead of always providing it. And Lily? Lily would grow up knowing she was loved, not just by a mother who'd moved mountains to keep her safe, but by a man who'd chosen to be her father when he didn't have to, who'd hung her art on refrigerators and built her a garden with rabbits, and would probably let her get a dog named Sparkle, even though it was a ridiculous name. That was the real victory, not the territory deals or the neutralized threats or the safety that money could buy. It was the ordinary moments. Saturday morning coffee, rabbit poop consultations, bedtime stories read in voices that weren't too tired to be silly. It was love. Messy, complicated, hard-won love that didn't apologize for how it began, because it was too busy becoming something worth keeping. If this story reminded you that everyone deserves a second chance, even the people who seem beyond saving, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below about what redemption means to you. Hit that like button to support more stories about love, protection, and finding family in unexpected places. And subscribe to Echoes of Redemption, because we bring you new emotional journeys every single day. Tales of broken people becoming whole, of danger transforming into safety, and of love that refuses to give up even when the world says it should. Before you go, check out our next video or explore our playlist for more stories that'll make you believe in second chances, fierce protection, and the kind of love that changes everything. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that even in the darkest stories, light finds a way in. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, and remember, the strongest thing you can do is let someone protect you when you've been fighting alone for too long. Good night.